Today, I'm copying two artists and recreating a watercolor painting and an ink drawing. Don't worry, these artists have long since passed away, and although I don't know them personally, I don't think they will mind me practicing from their work. For this watercolor painting, I chose a Joseph Mallard William Turner piece titled Ostend Harbor, or formerly known as Great Yarmouth Harbor, Norfolk, made in 1840. It's thought to be not fully finished, like many of his watercolors, but I love the vibrancy of the sunset and the colors that he chose. I started with a wet-on-wet technique, doing the sky first. I dipped directly from my watercolor pots to get a saturated color, and I mixed the colors directly on the page, which I'm pretty sure he did it as well, since after I did the red parts of the sky, I went to the blue, and then using those colors on the page, I blended together to make a violet. I really couldn't find much about this painting since it's at the National Irish Museum and it was recently retitled. In my research about Turner, I found out that he bequeathed around 20,000 works to the Tate Museum, and they have been digitally cataloged on their website, with the link in the description. In terms of the actual painting itself, I think he used a rougher watercolor paper to get more of that gritty effect. As you can see, my paper is quite smooth, so the colors blend together quite a bit. I would have loved to see a video tutorial of his step-by-step process and materials, but sadly that wasn't available in the 1800s. So I tried to use my own knowledge of watercolor to reverse engineer his process. I let it dry and I started on the ground using the same process but with more muted tones. After letting the ground dry, I went in with a smaller brush and started working with the subjects, the windmill and the light tower. I have no idea how he got such tiny details in the light tower since my brush is a 0, which is one of the smallest watercolor brushes you can have, and his painting is not that much bigger than this one. Normally I would add ink to get these details, but I don't think that's what he did. Same on the little steps and the ridges of the tower. I don't know how he got so much texture into those. I tried to recreate the technique with a dry brush, but I don't think that was it either. Maybe I'll just have to travel to Dublin to see this painting in person. I would say my takeaways after this painting are, it's actually a lot of fun to recreate something, especially such a loose watercolor technique. I should definitely incorporate some more of that into my own work since that's kind of what watercolors are made for. And Turner's use of color was genius. I love how it's bright and lively and definitely enhanced by his own imagination, but it still looks real and it looks really, really nice and like somewhere you want to be. Okay, on to the second one. This next one is actually an etching, meaning it was carved into a plate, treated with acid, and then revealed and printed. I'll call it a drawing for the purposes of this video, since I think the technique is similar. This is one of Rembrandt's drawings from 1641 of a mill that was owned by the Leather Makers Guild on the west side of Amsterdam. It's believed that he started the etching on site and finished it in studio. I really like this piece. I think it's also quite similar to ink hatching, so that's why I used an ink pen to make this one. I also like the windmill theme for the two paintings we have going on today. I started this sketch in pencil, just so I could lay everything out where it should. I tried to mark where the main points of the landmarks should go by visually measuring the distance. For example, the two buildings should span about 2/3 of the way horizontally, and the top of the windmill should reach nearly the top of the page. After I got the sketch down, I actually started moving right to left in my inking process. My reasoning for this was twofold. I didn't want to smudge my pencil lines by working left to right since I'm right-handed, and the right side of the page had less complicated line work, so I thought that was a better place to get a feel for Rembrandt's style. I wanted to try to copy each of the strokes as closely as I could, and I tried to stay loose since he has quite a flowing technique. Whenever I'm trying to copy directly, I always wonder what is a mistake and what's not, and if the artist intended for a stroke to fall how it did. I sometimes think of the artist being like, it's good enough, no one will notice. And then you get me trying to copy each line exactly how it was put down. And their spirits die a little bit on the inside because someone's copying their mistakes. And something I wanted to address in this video is so many people and even artists themselves think it's never okay to copy someone's work. And this is true if you're trying to sell it or post it somewhere without attribution or permission. If you have studied art and art history, quite a few artists began their careers by apprenticing the masters of their time, whether it be the owner of the guild they were in during the Renaissance or traveling to Florence, Paris, Rome, etc. to study from the greats. How is one supposed to master colors or light or anatomy if they've never drawn it before? Same argument goes for those that somehow think using references makes your work invalid. The masters are able to draw without references because they have already a mental repository of that object from drawing it thousands of times. How are you supposed to recreate how a fabric drapes or how a light hits the cheekbone if you've never drawn it before? So that's a pet peeve of mine, when artists are looked down upon for using references, even if it's 100 different references cobbled together to make something entirely original. Overall, I'm really pleased with how these turned out, and I would love to do more studies like this. It was quite relaxing not having to make any of my own decisions and just blindly follow what was in front of me and try to focus on technique. I wish there were more artists who did watercolor and had their sketches out and about, since a lot of traditional artists were oil painters. But still, there's plenty in line to practice from. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.